Welcome to 1M3Y, a personal development podcast where I share about how to achieve your goals and speak to successful entrepreneurs and other key opinion leaders. I'm Joe.
And I'm Kerwin.
Welcome back to episode 12 of our podcast. Today we have another exciting guest, Admond.
Yeah.
Admond is a physicist turned data scientist and now a founder building the Runway Ventures, a weekly newsletter to help people learn from startup mistakes and become better founders. He spent the first 3 years of his career helping companies solve business problems as a data scientist. Meanwhile, he was also a corporate trainer, speaker, and writer in data science. Then, he spent the next 3 years building startups. One failed, one got acquired. So, Admond, could you walk us through the transition from physics to data science and eventually to the entrepreneurship space? What were some of the challenges you faced and who do you have to convince?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Kerwin. Admond here. To really start from the very beginning, I think the whole story really started when I was in year 3 in NTU, which is the university that I attended. Back then, I was studying physics. I was looking for my first internship as a student, and I couldn't find any. And my last resort, was my final year projects professor who gave me a recommendation letter to this overseas research institute called CERN, which is a physics, particle physics kind of like institution where all the students, professors, researchers came together to do research, right? And because of his letter, I got admitted to this 2 months summer studentship program. So needless to say, I fly there for 2 months and attended their workshops, met a lot of awesome physicists, researchers. I think one of the most life-changing workshops that I attended back then, it was like 7 years ago. It was this machine learning workshop. I didn't know this topic back then, right? So I just joined the workshop, just wanting to learn something new. And because of this workshop, I started knowing more about AI, machine learning, and data science in general. That kind of piqued my interest, but I still didn't know much about this space back then, right? And so 2 months after I came back to Singapore and then started my self-learning journey on data science, it's like the whole journey of how I get started in data science. And because of that particular workshop that I attended, I always say that it kind of changed my life 360 because I transitioned from being a physicist to becoming a data scientist just because of that moment, right? And I always told this story to my friends and other people. Without that workshop, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm super grateful about that. And yeah, so because of that, I came back, I self-learned, and then after I graduated, I started doing internship, part-time internship, full-time internship in data science. The fun thing is that I didn't start by finding a full-time job after my graduation. So a lot of my friends, my parents actually didn't understand what I was doing. Why didn't I find a full-time job right after I graduated? Because I don't have enough experience in data science, I decided to find a full-time internship to do just to build my portfolio. And then from there onwards, I built my path. Slowly, I transitioned into a full-time data scientist. Micron, stay there, for 2 years working on smart manufacturing and AI projects. So really, I spent the first 3 years of my career in data science before I embark on my startup journey. And here comes the tipping point. How did I decide to even start my startup journey, right? A lot of people didn't really understand that. And to me, I didn't even understand that at all. I think the whole startup story actually started when I joined a local startup here in Singapore. It was called Hackwagon Academy. Back then, it taught data science and Python programming. It was a local startup. So the reason why I quit my job at Micron to join them is because I wanted to learn more about startup, how to thrive under startup, how to build something within a startup. Even though I stayed there for like just 8 months, but that kind of environment taught me how to build something without clear instruction, how to thrive under uncertainties, how to move fast in a startup, right? And I kind of love that pace, that kind of environment. And so after 8 months, I decided, okay, maybe it's time to like build something on my own. But I didn't have enough experience. And so I gave myself 3 years. And I also told my girlfriend back then that, hey, give me 3 years. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, to build startups, right? And because I didn't have enough experience, so I decided to join Entrepreneur First, which is back then an incubator of startup founders, right?
Mm.
To build startups. So I joined them, the batch, and this is where I found my ex-co-founder, where we started building our fintech startup. So long story short, I spent my next 3 years of my career basically building 2 startups. One is the fintech startup called Stack. Super exciting roller coaster, right? But after 1.5 years, we didn't make it because of our own mistakes. Maybe story for another time. And also the market traction that we had, and a lot of other external factors, and of course the problem that we were solving. All in all, it added up that we couldn't solve the problem as a founder. We decided to shut it down and move on. And for me myself, I spent my next 2 months basically doing self-reflection before I embark on my second startup with my partner on a marketing tech software. So I joined them last year in June to build this marketing software called LeadGram under an agency called X10 Media. It is an influencer marketing agency. So my role as a CTO was to build in-house software for them to generate leads for our clients. Joined them for 8 to 9 months. The good news is that just earlier this year we got acquired by one local media group. Super exciting period. And so and after this exit, I decided to build something more meaningful. This is how I started my current newsletter called the Runway Ventures, where I talk about startup mistakes and lesson learned to help other founders avoid those costly mistakes and just to stay default alive. Yeah, in rendering. Yeah.
Nice. So just now you were mentioning about your first startup, Stack, right? I guess I guess very curious. Like maybe what is one of the critical mistakes you can share with us, and how does that influence your decision or choices moving forward with other future startups?
Yeah, I can probably make a whole long list of the mistakes that we make, but if I were to pick one, I think the most important mistake that we made was that we were solving the wrong problem as a founder ourselves. We thought that, because we were both first-time founders, we started off with this fintech space, whereby financial API was a hot thing. In the US, there's this company called Plaid. They build financial API for consumers. So we thought that, why not we build, financial API for SMEs? Just copy and paste, change something, apply it to Southeast Asia. We thought it's something exciting, something that could get, investment. It's a hot space. So we started out by doing this, but after 1.5 years, the realization that I learned from this mistake is that both of us were not in the fintech or finance space. We didn't know the problem deep enough. And then we spent a lot of time, 3 to 4 months time, just talk to various stakeholders and our customers, our users, just to understand the problem before we even started building things. That kind of wasted a lot of our time, resource, and of course our runway. We burned a lot of money just to understand the problem. If we could have solved a problem that we knew that we face ourselves, that we knew deeply enough, that could have saved us, from so many months and time and even a lot of money back then. I would say, in short, the mistake that we made is that we were solving the wrong problem as a founder. And so what I would advise even myself, always remind myself, is that whatever problem that I'm going to solve in future, I need to make sure that I need to answer the question. The very important question is, why me, right? Why am I the right person to solve this problem? Do I have the right skill set? Do I have the right experience? Do I have the right network? Do I have the right relationship? All this should probably come into space to make sure that I'm the right person. To increase the chances of success, I guess, because everything is stacked against me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you pointed out it correctly, sometimes it's easier or it's better for us to solve a problem that it's closer to our heart. Especially from your own experience, right? You realize that you because you are in a new space, you have to speak to a lot of people to
Mm.
learn about the space. And definitely that's not an easy one, after the failure and you have to close it down. But I understand that you also did some self-reflection for some period after the
Mm.
closure of the startup. Could you share some of the insights or conclusions you came, other than the ones that you have already shared previously?
Right. Honestly, that after we closed it down, the 2 months was pretty dark. I think it's probably the darkest period in my life because I was lost. My thought was always, oh, should I find a new job? Should I start something new from scratch? Stuff like that. I guess after this 2 months of reflection, I realized that having strong support network as a founder is extremely important. I always thought that I'm building this on my own, that I need to prove to someone else. Actually, I think I should have played the long game. That at the end of the day, we are building this together as a fellow founders. And luckily, during that period, I met a lot of founders during our meetups, whether it's virtual or physical. I learned so much about from their experience, their mistakes, and also their journey. And I no longer felt alone, right? Because I thought that, I closed it down. I played the victim game. That, oh shit, I closed down my startup. The ego thing that when you close down a startup, particularly your first business, is hurt, right? It's hurt. And having known other founders also face similar challenges make me feel that, hey, actually I'm not alone. That's actually this just part of the game, part of the journey. As long as you pick some learnings from there, learn from your mistakes, don't repeat the same mistakes. I think it's just part of the game. Yeah.
Oh, maybe for you just share what do you? I mean, you mentioned that the past that 2 months was a really dark time for you. Like, is that what? How do you get out of it? Besides talking to people, like, were your family supportive or like maybe that's particular a good way to think too?
Honestly, I think journaling helps me a lot. I journal a lot. When I had something that I couldn't figure out, when I had a lot of thoughts in my head, I tend to journal, write down my thoughts down. I have this whole Notion database that I put down all my thoughts. I journal, write down the struggle that I have in mind, write down what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, why am I thinking this at the first place, who can I seek help from. And I think journaling really helps me a lot in terms of seeking better clarification. I think clarity of thought is important, and through journaling, that kind of helps me tide through the tough period, I would say. Even today, till today, I am doing this weekly and monthly review thing, like literally every week, every month. I'm still journaling. Every week I try to write down, okay, what's happened this week, what's gone wrong, what can I do better every week, and plan what should I do the next week. And every month I try to sit down and try to see, okay, what goes right this month, what goes wrong, how can I improve. It's kind of put me back in a place where I have better clarity of myself, self-awareness to continuously improve. I would say, yeah.
Wow. Actually, I was also thinking of starting something like journaling, and I've seen from social media some people do recommend that. Actually, I also, but I think one thing that's hard is that I have generally not been very reflective of what has happened, my experiences, and then that is something I want to do more. Like, how do you do it? Is it you have a template that you sort of have headers, and then you write down? It's more of you just sit down in the session 30 minutes and you just write whatever that comes to your mind.
Yeah, good question, man. I think there are two ways, in my opinion, to do that. The first way is freestyle, right? You just sit down and write whatever that's in your head. But to me, I prefer the second option, which is a more structured way. So I have downloaded this template and I modify the question. So every week I'll sit down, get a template out in Notion, and it will give me 8 questions to prompt me just to write down my thoughts, right? Like what happened this week? What are you grateful for this week? What mistakes do you make this week? Stuff like that. And then having this structure kind of 8 questions every week to just ask myself and write down my thoughts that give me better thought of clarity. Yeah, basically.
Do you go back to review these things that you've written down like every month, or like do you do that, or it's more of like a repository, then you go assess it like about other?
Yeah, I'll do it from time to time. Sometimes when I look back, like the stuff that I wrote 2 months ago,
Yeah.
sometimes it was funny, but it was kind of like reflective journey, right? And it just shows how much I learn and grow as a person, and I enjoy that, right? I try to keep the journaling session short, usually within 30 minutes. Maximum is 1 hour, just to write down my thought every week. So it also gave me a better chance for me to plan what I want to do and what I want to prioritize the next week before the next week comes. So I think that helps, having a structured way, a prompts to help me write the review. Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. So what, I think now moving on to the Runway Ventures, your latest so-called venture that you're doing, or which is a newsletter. But what prompted you to do this newsletter format for to use it to share lessons and from startup failures and speaking to different founders? Yeah.
Right. I think that goes back to so after my first startup shut down, I always had this thought, even from last year onwards, that if there's a way that I could learn from someone else's mistakes, other founders' mistake, other startup mistakes, I could have avoided the mistake that I made in my first startup. Right? I may not have died, I don't know, but maybe I can survive, right? And so from that onwards, I always had this thought of writing, always had this thought to learn from startup mistakes, but somehow it's extremely hard for me to find the resources, the articles, the videos, just to learn from startup mistakes. Usually, especially for Southeast Asia founders, we tend to be shy. I don't want to be vulnerable to share our mistakes, right? Nobody wants to share their screw ups and all this. And so it is hard for me to find. At the same time, I realize how important it is to learn from startup mistakes. And so there's a gap right there, right? It's very important to learn from startup mistakes, yet nobody's writing about this. All the newsletters, all the articles, they talk about, this startup raised 2 mil as a seed round.
Yeah.
That startup ran here are 3 ways for you to be successful. The thing here is, a lot of us read this piece of articles, we think that the tips might be helpful for our own startups. The reality is that there are many ways to be successful as a startup founder, but there are only few ways you can die, right? So what the tips that people use to be successful might or might not be applicable to your startup. But the mistake that people make, if you can avoid that, maybe you wouldn't die, right? I think this is a bit counterintuitive, whereby instead of learning from success stories, I think the better way to learn is other people's mistakes. And that's the whole purpose of building, writing the Runway Ventures, which is essentially a newsletter that every Sunday I'll just pick one failed startup and then analyze their stories, analyze their mistakes, and then share the lesson learned with the founders, right? And so that all of us can learn together and grow together. And the whole point of this is that if you as a startup founder, if you can stay default alive, you don't die, you have a chance. So the newsletter is not meant to help you become successful, right? It's not the whole point of newsletter. The newsletter is meant to help you not die. That's the thing I always say. If you don't die, you have a chance, right? And this why I started writing back then. And so far, the responses that I received from my subscribers have been pretty positive. That people are really, appreciative of that, and more founders share with me privately that how much struggle they have. And so, eventually, the vision that I have for the Runway Ventures is, instead of just a newsletter, I want to make it a full founders community where all founders can gather together and just be vulnerable, share their struggles, the mistakes, and just learn from each other, and give them the access to the knowledge, the network, even the investors that they will not otherwise have. I would say this is the path that I'm pursuing right now for the Runway Ventures. Yeah.
Could you share with us one of the biggest challenges you face building Runway Ventures?
Right. I think right now because it is purely or mainly on the newsletter side, right? And so for newsletter, subscribers growth is very important. And so every day I'm just thinking, how can I grow my subscribers, right? By leveraging some other stuff. Before the Runway Ventures, actually I had another newsletter that I no longer write about it, which is called Hustle Hub. It's a data science because yeah, I I paused on that because I wanted to focus on the Runway Ventures. But the problem that I faced when I was writing the first newsletter is that this distribution has always been the problem. I can write a lot of content, useful content, but if nobody read it, is it useful? Is it important? Is it worth it? And so right now for Runway Ventures, the thing that I'm focusing more a lot is two things. First is the content. Second is the distribution. And so right now the challenge that I'm facing is also the distribution part, whereby how can I leverage partnership, social media to distribute, to get more attention, get more eyeballs, and grow the subscribers uh, significantly, right? So what I'm doing now is leveraging partnership with different startup ecosystem builders in Singapore, and also leveraging social media, particularly LinkedIn and Facebook groups, to just share the stories, startup founder stories with more people, so that they could come and join us together. Yeah.
So far with all these different channels that you're trying to leverage on, which one would you say is the most successful in terms of bringing you subscribers to the newsletter? And maybe the next question would be like, do you track like engagement and yeah?
Yeah, good question. I would say two main one, LinkedIn, which is the one that I use my own profile to share, right? A second channel that give me the highest ROI is the Facebook group. So because right now I'm focusing mostly on the, South Asia founders, particularly in Singapore and Malaysia. So when it comes to Malaysia, how do you find this bunch of people? I realized actually Facebook group, there is this one or two Facebook group that is super huge, that founders are very active inside. And so what I was trying to experiment is to add value first, share more startup stories, screw up stories, and lesson learned. And people loved it. People love learning from startup stories. And from there onwards, I started focusing on one or two Facebook groups just to add value for the first few posts. And by the time I think the fifth post, I started writing this newsletter, my newsletter's topic, and then just put a CTA there, call to action, to get people to read. I think that kind of post, even without me publishing any single post, I was just promoting, right? Without any publishing any newsletter. I think the first two posts got me about 400 subscribers without
Oh wow.
any post from those Facebook posts. From there was I decided to double down on that Facebook groups and my LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
I see. So okay, thanks for sharing so much, from your startup failures and then building a new startup and then now with your new newsletter and sharing some tips also on how perhaps one can grow their newsletter. But based on your journey thus far, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to start their first venture?
Okay. I'm just sharing this. If I were to go back in time, right, just to share this to someone who started, I would say find the right co-founder and solve the right problem. Okay. The reason why I want to piece them together is because I think it is extremely hard as a solo founder. So find the right co-founder, and then together, you guys as a team solve the right problem. I think that the single most important advice that I would give someone who started out. Yes. Yeah. Right, having the right team to solve the right problem could give you a higher chance to succeed as a startup founder. Otherwise, the odds are really stacked against you. Yeah.
Yeah, so where do you see Runway Ventures heading in the next few years?
Yeah. Right now I am slowly building the ecosystem partnership. And so what I envision in the next few years is there will be this full-fledged community platform that I'm building, that people will be in there. So right now, the community that I have is on Discord. It's still on the chat base. But what I want to imagine it to be is a community platform where people can come and engage and then learn and then network and then access to whoever that they want to on that particular platform. And the whole idea of doing this is to make sure that all the founders, even for aspiring founders or for the experienced founders, everyone can learn from each other and compound our growth together. Would be the future, the next 3 to 5 years that I want Runway Ventures to be at. And so right now, newsletter is just the first product that I'm launching. And the whole idea of doing that is to gather a bunch of people. And then once we have that bunch of subscribers, slowly we will branch out to other new product offerings, whether it's through, tools or software that founders have access to, partnership with the investors, VCs, knowledge base, stuff like that. Yeah, that would be the ecosystem that I'm building. I would say ecosystem is the right word to use that. I want to build an ecosystem where founders move together, learn, and compound together.
Right. That's very noble. That's a very noble cause, I think. Especially I think in Southeast Asia, founders, it's hard for founders to find resources, given as compared to, let's say, Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
So other than Runway Ventures, are there any other new projects that you are particularly excited about here?
Yeah, absolutely. I came from a data science background, right? So definitely the space I'm looking at, I'm sure you already guessed it, which is the Gen AI space. AI. And I have been actively observing the space, but I try not to jump into this space blindly by just building for the sake of building. So right now I'm more of like observing the space and see what are the problems, what are the gaps, what are the opportunities that I can add value based on my skills and experience. And I think the reason why I chose Gen AI, I think right now we are at the inflection point where Gen AI is gonna change everything in our life in the next 3 to 5 years. Maybe some people might not experience that. Maybe only developers experience the productivity boost. But the way that I see Gen AI now is how I felt about data science 6 years ago when I first started. That data science was gonna change the world and the businesses. And right now, Gen AI came to it. I had the same feeling, even more excitement about this space. That hey, wow, this is gonna be huge, man. How huge it's gonna be, I don't know, but I'm just gonna know that. I just know that it's gonna change everything, and I want to be part of it, right? So yeah.
All right. So do you see yourself as more of like potentially being like an operator, trying to solve a problem or come up with a solution? Essentially, create a startup in that space. Yeah. How do you see yourself in that thing?
But yeah, for sure. When the time is right, timing right, and the team is right, the problem is right, then I would come out and build another startup again, right? So that's why right now I'm more of like an observant to learn. Nowadays you see every day there's this new Gen AI startups. There's so many Gen AI startups now. My take is that probably 90% of them will die in the next few years if they didn't have a differentiated value prop to their customers, their users. But those 10% that survive will probably become like Meta or Google's kind of size. And so right now, I'm not trying to be, the first one to do that. I'm trying to learn from the first one who did this and try to experience and see what are the problems that I could be the right person to solve that in the future. If you ask me personally, I would probably prefer how Gen AI can be used to solve problems in the B2B. Reason why I focus more on the B2B is because I felt this is where the money is right now. The rest for me to see, you need a lot of money to burn before you have the hockey stick move to achieve what you want. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Admond. I think you've learned a lot from not just failures of the startup, but also how to grow if you want to do a new startup. Anyone here want to grow a new startup. So that's a shout out for you. Shout out to Runway Ventures. Follow them if you ever follow them. Yeah, thanks so much for the time, Admond, for joining us on our Saturday evening.
No worries. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Kerwin.